Hello again. So I hope that this works better this time. Let me know if you tune in at any point. Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me, just so I don't speak to myself. So I'm hoping that the first few minutes of the video that I just recorded are up in the group. That I was welcoming you to day 2. And I was speaking about our theme for today, which is the needs that we try to meet unknowingly, unconsciously, through food, dieting, and or body loathing. And you can go back there for the intro to that. But the first thing I was also speaking about our relationship as women, our relationship with needs, and whether we are okay with having them, meeting them, working on satisfying them, prioritizing them, or not. And that's really, really important. But the other thing I wanted to emphasize is that it's very intentional that both on the PDF, I was also speaking about that PDF. If you scroll up or down in the group, you will see my earlier post in which you can find a PDF guide, and that speaks about the most common needs that we try to satisfy through food dieting and or body loathing. And this has been designed as a guide for you, as a resource that you can go back to when you have a craving or when you have the urge to diet or restrict or detox or any of those things, or when you have a fat feeling, and we're going to speak a little bit more about what fat feelings and feeling fat means. And so anytime any of those things is happening for you, you can go back to that guide and browse through it and see those very common, very basic and fundamental needs that are included there, and they're broken down into chakra categories. And it can support you with recognizing what is really going on for you in that moment and what you're really needing in that moment, which unconsciously gets translated into that desire for food or, an attack on your body, a fat feeling, all of those things. Yeah. And I wanted to emphasize that a little bit more because I think over time we have become a little bit more familiar with the concept and with the knowledge, the fact that behind cravings, behind binge eating, emotional eating, overeating, all those behaviors that are on the more excessive side of the spectrum, we have become familiar with the idea and the fact that there is a deeper reason behind that. Yeah, there is a need, there is a desire, there is an emotion, there is something going on behind that kind of gets translated and channeled into that. And the term emotional eating helps with that. Yeah, the term in itself implies that there are emotional reasons behind that. And so that is included in those needs, like the need to respond and to take care of our emotions. What we're not very familiar with as an idea is that even when we desire to restrict, when we feel the urge to diet and we really, really need to go on a diet, when we feel a very intense need to change our bodies in any way, to kind of detox and get rid, and that's a very powerful and specific way to describe that. Yeah, I want to get rid of excess whatever on myself. And also when we are very critical and very judgmental and very harsh towards our bodies, then there is also one or more needs behind that are left unmet, and again unconsciously we're trying to satisfy them through these ways. Yeah, and I feel this is really, really important because dieting, restricting, being in control, exercising, also excessive exercising and all of that are so much encouraged in our culture. They are perceived as the good thing to do. Yeah, when you do them, you're doing well, and we applaud you, and we're very happy and admiring you and all of that. But we don't realize that behind all those things, there are also these needs. Not always, but I guess what's most important in these cases, whatever your default pattern is, what's most important is the reasons why you choose to do something, whatever that is, right? Let me see. Okay, I also want to speak about fat feelings and what fat feelings really are, and what feeling fat that's so common really means. Yeah. And I want to start there. I want to start with saying, actually, there's something else that's popping on my mind. Let's start with fat feelings, then I might go back to that. So I really wanted to speak about that because this is the most common experience that comes up when we struggle with our body and our body image in any way. Yeah, I'm feeling fat. And it's an interesting one because, as I wrote in that post before, fat is not the feeling. Yeah, there is no feeling called fat. So anytime, and that's why I have included body loathing and those things that we use to try to meet certain needs. Yeah. And so when fat is not a feeling, we have come to use it a lot. First of all, fat is a very neutral word. Yeah, it's a very neutral word that describes certain body types and sizes and how much fat a body has in it. It is a really neutral word. It is neither good nor bad. In our culture, though, it has become has received such negative connotations that it's like one of the worst things that can happen to you is to be seen as fat, or to actually be fat, right? And there is a reason for that. And so what's happening is that many of our emotions, whatever emotions, mostly the challenging one, the difficult ones, the energy gets translated and interpreted by our brains as feeling fat. Yeah, and so a whole range of emotions can be interpreted as feeling fat. It can be sadness, it can be loneliness, it can be anger, it can be anxiety, it can be fear, and fear is an important one. It can be a whole range of emotions, but instead of tuning in and feeling those emotions, we kind of make them mean that we feel fat. When we experience them, immediately they get translated into feeling fat, and it's like we project those emotions onto our bodies. And it's like whatever is going on in that moment that causes these emotions, then when they turn into feeling fat, our body becomes a problem. And so the solution immediately is to change our bodies. Yeah. And so most of the time, again, it can be the whole range of emotions that we kind of don't want to feel. And then yesterday we're also speaking about how our mind likes to find the tangible and specific things to focus on. And so losing weight, for example, is a very specific thing that we can focus on, whereas going inside and feeling my fear, my pain, my sadness, my anger, all of that can feel very difficult, can feel very tricky, very intimidating. So it's very easy to flip that into, okay, I'm feeling fat, so what I need to do is lose weight. And that becomes an easy solution, but it's never an effective solution because we're not giving a solution to the actual issue. And so very, very often behind the fat feeling is some sort of fear. And fear of being neglected above all else. Yeah, because we know, due to our conditioning and living in this culture, we know that it's not very safe and it's not very really accepted or acceptable like culturally to be in a fat body. And so whether we have experienced personal shaming for our bodies or not, we don't really need to, because we witness that all over. Yeah, everywhere, from the media, from the street, from people that we know or members of our family that might have been in larger bodies, and then we might have witnessed them being shamed or humiliated about that. And so we kind of know that it's not very safe to be in the larger body. Yeah. And so there is immediately this fear that I run the risk, if I am fat, to be humiliated, to be ridiculed, to be neglected, to be shamed, to be all of that. And so what we do unconsciously is try to avoid that risk, try to avoid ever finding ourselves in that place. And so whatever emotion is there from the beginning, like whatever the initial emotion was, it very easily turns into anger and aggression at ourselves and at our bodies, because this feels like the most effective way to change. Like if I attack my body and if I'm really harsh with my body and I punish my body, then it won't ever get to that point of running the risk of being neglected. And that's actually the exact opposite happens, right? And that's a whole different story. So what I want to say and what I want to really emphasize is that fat feeling, anytime you feel fat, it's a sign that you are feeling something else at the same time behind that. Yeah. And so a question that I found super useful for myself, and I always give it to clients at the very beginning, is that, okay, I'm feeling fat right now. I'm feeling really uncomfortable in my body, and I don't want to be in my body, and I can't stand that. What else are you feeling? What else is going on? What else is really difficult for you to stand and to contain and to hold and to be comfortable with? And it can be what else, or it can be what am I really feeling? What am I really struggling to sit with right now? And the emotions are very much linked, and I want to close with that. Emotions are very much linked with how we experience our bodies. Because they can feel like, when we feel them, it feels like we're full of emotion, we're full of energy. And that can very easily get interpreted again by our brains as being full, as being big, as a kind of bursting with fat or whatever it is. But really, it's this experience. Yeah, and this is also part of what we try to get rid of when we restrict a lot, and on the more restrictive end of the spectrum. When we diet a lot, we restrict a lot, or in bulimia, where we actually take out of our bodies whatever we have consumed, it's actually on a deeper level, it's about those emotions that we feel, and if we really cannot feel that we can't contain, and we want to release them or to get rid of them. Yeah. So let me take a minute. So I'd love to invite you to go back to the PDF guide and kind of browse through it. You'll see many of the needs, and actually I want to close with that. In the PDF, you're going to see two needs that we don't often think of as needs, and they are actual needs. And one is pleasure, and the other one is play. And so these are not luxuries, and these are not just desires or something that it would be nice to have. They are actual needs. Oops. I got very passionate about that. So they are actual needs. We need to receive enough pleasure in our lives, and we need to have enough downtime to play and relax and chill and be silly and all of that. And we don't often think about those as needs. And so it's very easy for us to then look for pleasure or look for a sense of play and release and carefreeness and all of that in food, right? And so I'd love to invite you to think a little bit more about that. Go back to the PDF, browse through, and I would really love to hear, what do you recognize in yourself in terms of those needs? Like, what are the most common needs that you tend to use food or dieting or body loathing to try and meet? Yeah, for me, for example, grounding was a big one. Like, I tend to I used to spend a lot of time in my head and very much out of my body, and so I would use food to bring me down inside my body. Yeah, and I think that's also very collective one. So anyway, I'll gather all that in, and I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you in terms of needs, your relationship with them. What are the most common needs that you recognize in yourself that might have been left unmet in a very long time? Any questions you have, any comments, anything, let me know, and I will see you in the group. And tomorrow we are focusing on one of my absolute favorite themes, which is the relationship between the chakras, the energy centers of the body, and food and body image issues. And I will see you then. Sending you lots of love.